Hi, Lily.
Hi, Shelly. Good evening from Ghana, and trust you're doing well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting evening. It's a bit, the weather's changed, so in the winter gear.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yes, the weather's changed a lot, so it's really dark really early, and it's a bit wet. It's not exactly cold. All the spiders are out. Spider season.
Oh no, it's true. So around here we have so much rain. It's not supposed to be around this time, and it tells a lot of things how times have changed.
Yeah,
Yeah. So there's so much rain of late, and we have to be careful stepping out and all. Yeah.
yeah. I think it's the same here as well. Actually, I noticed about 2 weeks ago, all the leaves are still on the tree. And
Mm.
it's
Mm.
fall. Fall is in August. We're now in October, halfway through October, and it's just crazy. All the
Wow.
Yeah, and it's been raining here a lot as well. There've been some floods. I'm so glad I don't live in a coastal area.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not good. And they're warning us that what did they say? They said autumn is going to hit with a vengeance. That's what they said for next week.
Wow.
So I don't know what's.
Wow.
Just get a good umbrella.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. So I'm just going to say, in case there are any people who've joined, in case anyone's joined, hello, welcome. You are live. You have joined the right session. We're just warming up. But you know how it is, a bit of small talk, because that's our way to improve our communication, right, Nils?
Exactly, exactly. So I remember the very basis of me learning how to talk, and I've actually not stopped learning how to talk. The
Yeah,
reason is every platform I even if you ask me to speak to children, I have to prepare notes, I have to get ready, and I have to talk on the matter. And
yeah.
how I began building the confidence was talking to my friends. So like Shelly asked me a question, and I have to go and start my whole thesis and be in character. So it's good we are doing it this way.
You've got to get in character, Lils. So let me just check, Brendan. So if you guys are on the stream, we're just waiting for Brendan Kurasamy to join Kumarasamy. Sorry, I always murder those names to join the session. So I'm personally looking forward to it because I have that. Uh,
The space fillers, the space fillers. I've had transitions. I've had to move from one word to another one, and I'm like, oh my, not anymore, not anymore. I try to just catch my breath in place of the space fillers.
Yeah, because I watched a video of his and I was okay. I'm gonna do that. But when you're nervous, I used to say, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that sort of thing. Um, so hopefully he's got a few tips and he
Mm.
can help us move past it. So I know your communications and engagement for Hack Lab. So how does communication factor in your real world?
Mm. It's interesting. So you know what people actually thrive on is
Mm,
information and how that is actually built as true communication. And it's interesting to note that people people get people get talking and are able to interact also based on what they know and what you've told them and how you communicated to them. Hi, Brendan.
Hey
Welcome.
guys, sorry for the delay. I think I got the wrong StreamYard link or something.
Well, good to have you here. So I'm just going to introduce, for those of you who've been patiently waiting, thank you so much. Welcome to the Gen X Experience Leadership Roundtable. My name is Shirley, if you have not encountered me before, and I will be host and moderator for the next 90 minutes. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Lily. I'm not going to pronounce your surname. You've been
Hi,
engaged.
everyone.
I'm so bad at that. That is my one vice. So, engagement lead at the Hack Lab Foundation and also the owner of the super informative podcast Pointers in 10. So, if you've not heard that, if you're happy to share that, feel free plug.
Yes, shameless plug. I'm going to do that.
Do it, and
Like,
I'll happily promote across. So today we're talking to our esteemed guest, Brenden Kumarasamy. Brendan, if I've got that wrong, forgive me. It's
No, you
Sunday.
got that right. I was surprised you tried because you didn't try for Lily's.
Have you seen the spelling of her surname?
Yeah, I wouldn't try that one.
Botchway. Botchway, right?
right,
Yeah.
butchery.
Okay, so Brenden is an entrepreneur coach and founder of MasterTalk, which was established to help people master the art of sharing their message to the world. If you have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and like the video to be notified of new content. Please also share the link so other people can join and take part in this very informative session, which I hope it will be informative and interactive. This evening's event is carried across multiple channels, including YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope, and sponsored by Acacia Online. If you're having issues watching this live video, then YouTube is usually the best option, as well as Periscope. Let's make this an interactive session by making it, feel free to ask questions, and we'll be happy to pose those questions to Brenden. Comments and questions will be very much welcome. Allow me to introduce this evening's event. So I think we all understand the importance of clear communication, clear and effective communication. It's not limited just to politicians, celebrities, or people in the public eye. It's so important, just even for our personal relationships, career advancement, and just really positioning yourself as a person, really. So we decided to invite Brenden here because I was speaking to Lily before, and we were talking about those terrible and you know what I mean, and the face fillers. And hopefully we can glean some information from yourself, Brenden. Welcome. So on that note, let's jump straight in. Let's just start with what is the difference between clear communication and public? Is there really a difference anyway?
Yeah. So thanks for having me, you two. And once again, I apologize for the small delay. And the idea with communication we have to keep in mind, and the way that I teach it, is that communication is everything. It's not just the presentation that you have to give at work or at school. It's the tough conversations that you have with the people that you love. It's the long dinners that you have with your best friends. It's the way that you negotiate deals. It's the way that you go on dates. Every interaction that you have, from the way that you meet new strangers to the way that you interact with them, is all communication. So the way that I explain it is communication in many ways is like a multiplier effect. If you get really good at one vertical, so let's say I get better at presentation skills, you will slowly become a master of all. So if I get better at conversations, I get better at podcasts and facilitating, etc., etc.
So, sorry, I'm going to jump in, Lily. I'm not sure if you have any questions yet. How do you differentiate? I mean, we talk about communication. Most people think it's what you say, but there's also the flip side in terms of what you don't say.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's just magic. The way that I think about this, because I think there's different levels for different types of speakers. Like for example, body language experts. I mean, they're important, they're great, but body language is something that only advanced speakers should be thinking about, because most speakers have issue with just their content. Right? So it's all about baby steps. One way of thinking about it is public speaking is like juggling 18 balls at the same time. And the goal, and to figure out how to do this, is to juggle one ball at a time. Okay, for this conversation, let me be more calm. And then the next time, let me add eye contact and actually look at the lens. And then over and over again, through a series of experiences, then we're able to juggle all 18. So a good way of rephrasing the question is, where should we start? Right? Like how do we start and figure this out? So one method that I can share with people is what I call the puzzle method. So public speaking in many ways is like a jigsaw puzzle. You know those 1,000-piece puzzles that you do with your family sometimes during like the holidays? So if I asked you two, Shirley and Lily, if you were doing this puzzle, which pieces would you start with first and why?
Lily, you want to go first?
Sure, let me see. Okay, fine. So if normally the puzzles I know, right? There's a photo you have to remake, and you have all the pieces. So I'll normally look for where I find a clear pattern. I see a pattern that probably the colors are alike, and so normally build from ground up. So I'll start building from, see, the bottom. I see things looking the same. I put in there, I move up, and I build on it till it gets to the top. That's where I normally come from.
That's a pretty unique technique. What about you, Shirley? Any different thoughts there?
Yeah. So if I look at a puzzle and it's got 4 edges, I know there are at least 4 edges. So I start at the edge because you can't go wrong.
Exactly. So Lily, sometimes when I ask this question, there's always like 5% of the audience who gives me this weird answer I didn't think of. They go, I start from the bottom, I go all the way up. I was like, what is it? And then you have, people like Shirley who give me, the majority. We have start the corners because it's easier, right? Right. So let's go with Shirley's answer for today. Anyways, the point that I'm making.
I like easy.
Me too. I mean,
Yes.
for me, the whole reason behind the YouTube channel and this conversation is public speaking is supposed to be easy. Why do we
Mm,
complicate it? Why do we compare it to death? Why do we do all these things
Right.
when we could just be simple about it? So, building on that analogy, starting with the edges first, you're right. Most people, when they answer that question, answer it in that way. But the question we need to ask ourselves is why don't we do that in public speaking?
mm,
We have a presentation in 2 days at school, at work, it doesn't matter. So, what do? We shove a bunch of content. We get to the presentation, we get to the last slide, and it sounds something like this. Yeah, so, thanks. That's like every single presentation. So, what's a better way of doing this? So, this technique you can apply right after this call. It will 10x your communication skills
mm,
overnight.
Okay.
Much like puzzles, start with the edges first. Do the
mm,
introduction 50 times to 100 times, not 2 times, 100 times. It'll take you 2 hours. It won't be that long. An hour, maybe an hour and a half. Conclusion, same thing. What's a great movie with a terrible ending? A terrible movie, right?
mm,
Same
mm,
thing. 100 times the conclusion. And then you'll realize when you look at it, you're like, wow, I'm pretty good at this public speaking thing. Then tackle the middle. But much like puzzles, I don't know about you two, but I don't like doing my exactly low hanging fruit. I love the way that you phrase it. I'm gonna steal that actually. That's very true. But yeah, exactly. And much like puzzles, I don't know about you two, but when I'm working on a 1,000-piece puzzle, I don't want to do it alone. It's
mm,
daunting. It's lonely. So what do, I do it with my family.
mm,
Even today, as a professional speaker, I still do all my keynotes with my friends. I still
mm,
practice with them. It's boring doing it alone. Have them help me with some slides, get their help, and then ace the middle. And that's how
mm.
you solve the public speaking puzzle.
Wow.
Thing.
Interesting.
I think I have a follow-up question,
Please.
especially because you mentioned the beginning and the conclusion should be something that should have. So, what I picked out, right? I picked out from this is the introduction should be so interesting that people can hang on and want to listen to the end, and the end should be somewhat actionable or something that people can go away with, so that you didn't just start beautifully and end terribly. So, I'm wondering what could be some things you can start off with as introductions, and how would you conclude so that it leaves a damn mark with people?
That's a great follow up question. Right. So obviously the YouTube video has all that stuff, but I'm happy to summarize for today's conversation. Right. Because there's like 7 ways you can do both. So for
Mm,
intros, let's start with the biggest mistake and then we get into the fun stuff. How can we reinvent that? And we'll do the same thing with the conclusion. So biggest mistake with the intro is this. Hi everyone, my name is Brenden. This is Shirley. You burp in the middle. This is
Oh,
Lily,
5 minutes.
and we're from Gen X, the experience that we're going to talk about. So that's like the standard introduction. Hi guys, right? So how can we change that? Okay. So one way is by starting with our key idea.
mm,
Okay. This could be a personal story. It doesn't need to be a story. I know we talk about storytelling all the time. We don't need to complicate our lives with this. I'm easy, right? It's easy, right? Not hard. So just pick something. Pick a key idea. What is if you were to summarize your whole presentation in one sentence? What is that one sentence? So let's say in my keynotes, I'll use myself as an example here, and then we can use next gen as an example. Gen X, excuse me. So for me, I want to convince anybody that they can master public speaking. That's why I make the YouTube videos. That's why I do the coaching, because I know everyone can do it. So what's the easiest way for me to prove that at the beginning? Not by saying, hi everyone, my name is Brenden. I've coached dozens of people. I work with all these companies. I'm not helping people doing that.
Mm.
Instead, I start like this. When I was 5 years old, my parents looked at me and they said, well, Brenden, you live in Montreal, which means you need to learn French. So we're going to put you in a French education system. Except one problem. I
mm,
didn't know a single word of French. So for the first 10 years of my education, not only was I uncomfortable with presentations, I had to give presentations in a language I didn't even know. That's how I start all of my keynotes.
mm,
Not by saying, oh yeah, this is all my accolades and all this. Nah, that's useless to people. By defending a key idea, something that matters to people. So if we use Gen X as an example, let's make this coaching session so you can all apply this. If you were to summarize this platform's mission in one sentence, what would that sentence be?
Bringing information to the masses.
In what way? What kind? Like, what are you sharing? Cooking information, recipes?
Okay, listen. Yeah, we're bringing. I would say thought leadership.
So, what does thought leadership mean to you?
Thought leadership means the thoughts and insights of people on the top, what they see, and how that can empower people across the world.
Right. And last question: empower them to do what? To go big and take?
Action, to think outside the box, and that sort of thing.
Okay, cool. So now with that information, let's say I was your coach. There's two ways I would do this intro. Number one is the standard way. Hey guys, my name is. Anyways, you get it, right? Second way is by defending the key idea. When I was in university, what I struggle with the most is lack of access to information. All of the thought leaders, all of the amazing people that we admire, we don't have access to. They're too expensive. So how do we live in a world where that information becomes accessible to everyone? What if we created a platform where all of these thought leaders would come on the show for free, share all of that knowledge with people so that that gap doesn't exist anymore? So that with all of the ideas that we share through Gen X, you can go inspire a new generation of leaders. And that's exactly what we're here to do today. My name is Shirley, and this is my colleague Lily. And today now it's a lot more. Now you're just like, okay, now we got the idea.
So I love that actually. So I think I got that that's something that'll make me hold on to listen to the end. Yeah.
Right.
Because I liked how you went about that. Interesting.
Right. So once again, there's no right way. I just did that for fun. I'm kind of notice how I have fun with this.
Can I unpack that?
Please. Oh, before you do, let's talk about the conclusion too. Actually, unpack it and then we'll go to the conclusion. Go ahead, Shirley.
So what I figured you did is you went for the angle that most people can relate to straight away. So you're like, you get the attention and they can relate to what you're saying. And then you can say how we can somehow together solve this problem. You're basically positioning yourself as that person that can help them solve a common problem, right?
Right. And building on that. And one thing I want to emphasize for the group, that's just one of many sauces, right?
Yeah.
One of many varieties. There's like eight of them, right? But what you said is absolutely correct, Shirley. But one thing I would add to that is I'm not just looking at it from their perspective, I'm also looking at it from mine. So as I was asking these questions, what I was doing, essentially, it's not rocket science. I was just saying, out of all of the 7 things that Lily and Shirley just told me, what is the thing that I find the most exciting?
Right.
And for me, it's this idea of accessibility. Because the reason I started because I don't need to make YouTube videos, you probably tell, I know what I'm talking about. So I could just have my clients and just not make free stuff. I do it because there's people out there who can't afford me, which has now become most of the human population. But communication is so important. Someone should democratize this information. So I just decided to do that, right? So that's why accessibility is something that matters. So that's what I talked about in my introduction. For you, I don't know, maybe it's the fame. No, I'm kidding. I'm just playing. But that's the thing. But every person who's listening has a different idea. There might be some guy who's listening right now who just loves baking cupcakes in their house, right? Who just has this amazing recipe that nobody else knows about. Those are the ideas I get excited about. Because remember, if you're excited about the idea, everyone else will be. And if you're not excited the idea, why should anyone else be? Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right.
Can I come back on that one?
Please.
I think there's a balance between you being excited and bringing everyone else along with you, and kind of exciting others as well. Because some people, when I work with people and they're starting businesses, it's like, I've got this idea and I'm going to fix the world. And it's like, nobody cares. Nobody's true. Nobody cares. What they care about is what matters to them. So unless you're able to tap into what they care about, you can talk as much as you want. Nobody cares. And I think that's where a lot of people starting businesses, please, that is the one thing you should learn. Nobody cares about your accolades. They just want to make money. They want to get freedom. They want to, right? So when you're formulating your business idea, I think one thing in terms of communicating with people is really understanding your customer and how to talk with them.
Right, and to build on that, you're absolutely right. It's both, right? If you don't, make something that's worth sharing to other people, obviously no one's going to watch it. But
Yeah.
the other part is also true, because I know
Mm,
you talk about that part always. You got to focus on the customer and your business coach and all that stuff. But the other part is equally important. If you're not excited to pitch it in that way, you're not going to be able to do it at a world class level. I'll give
Yeah.
you the number one example. There's so many speech coaches out there. When you ask them for tips, they go, Shirley, Lily, you should be more funny. Well, what if you don't? What if you're not funny? Like, what do you do with that?
mm,
What if you're more sarcastic? Use
Yeah.
sarcasm. What if you like storytelling? Use story. There's no right answer here, but it's more about aligning the two. How do you align what the other person wants and what you want to tell? So, like, notice me. Like, yeah, my content is adding value to people, or else you probably wouldn't have me on. But the other part, which is also true, is I'm communicating in a way that I find exciting. Like, I could easily come into this conversation and go like, "Did you know that 73.7% of people are struggling with communication in the German countries and all this?" Like, I use research. That's not my thing, right?
mm,
Even if that might be useful to some person in the audience, I'm just not excited. So, like you said, it's about bridging the gap between the two.
Can
mm.
I, sorry, Lily, can I just
Right.
use the word authenticity on that one? Because I've had comments from people who are well meaning people who say, "Oh, you giggle too much." And I'm like, that's my thing. I just who I am. Like I'm a fun person. I'm not here to be stiff. If I do a show, I do it in the way that I feel comfortable with. If people find value in my content, fine. If they don't, that's fine. I'm sure there are hundreds of other smarter people that they can get it from. But I'm not going to change who I am, because ultimately I can't keep it up. And ultimately, people realize it's inauthentic, and people don't like dealing with inauthentic people. So
Mm.
I think that the authenticity is what matters. So I think, Brenden, what you're saying is, even whether you work with a coach or not, you need to find your own truth in your message.
Absolutely,
Sure.
Cool. Lily,
absolutely.
Right.
I'm just kind of,
Did we do the conclusion?
No,
I think we did
let's
it.
yeah,
Right.
let's get into that. So once
Right.
again, let's go through the standard, the exciting, the way that we usually conclude. So hey guys, what are the three things that we learned today? One, I actually forgot it. Two, three, thanks. So that's how we always re-summarize points. We don't
Yeah.
know why. It's just something we like to do because our teacher tells us to do it. I don't like that way of concluding. I much prefer something like this, which I call the vision state. So the
Mm,
vision state is essentially helping your audience imagine a world with your ideas implemented in them. So, one exercise you can do to help you think through this conclusion in a big way is, what if the entire world was watching us right now on Gen X? What would that world look like? How better would those people's lives be? Always think about the max, the end state of that vision, and communicate it to people. So, the way that I do this with Master Talk is the following: what if we lived in a world where nobody was scared of public speaking anymore? We would realize that our ideas matter and that we matter. So join me in the future of public speaking, where the tools and accessibilities become free and accessible to all. So whether you're a 16-year-old girl in Cambodia or a 23-year-old guy starting university and hoping to become an architect, through Master Talk, you'll be able to share your ideas with the world. So what are you waiting for? Go share them. That's much more interesting than saying, "So guys, yeah, so what did we learn about public speaking today?" It's not the same.
yeah,
So the key to for people to think about this is, when you think about your idea, whether it's a cupcake recipe, a platform, or anything, always think about what your end goal is and
mm,
communicate that end goal in the most compelling, authentic, and inspiring way to
mm.
the people that are listening to you.
Right. Thank you so much. That's really so we began, we had a story, or we had an intro that would make people hold on to listen to the end, and even leaving they have an inspiration, and they have this edge to want to do something. Yeah. So because you told them, or you gave them something to think about. Right. Thank you so much, Brendan. Now let's see.
I have.
Okay.
I was gonna ask. That might seem really weird, but it's kind of an art of seduction, isn't it? With your words,
Repeat that again.
it's kind of like the art of seduction with your words, isn't it?
The art of seduction.
Yeah,
Hmm. In many ways, yes. I think it's more about as you get better as a speaker, you
Mm,
start to figure out what your own identity is. So you can
mm,
tell, and that's because I'm young, right? Like I have my own way of communicating a message, and it's very different because most people in my industry are in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, whereas I'm in my 20s. Right, so and the reason is it's very rare for a speech coach to be in their 20s because it takes a long time to get really good at communication. I just have a weird story and how I got that really fast. But because of that, I'm a lot more quirky than most people. Some I make videos on like dancing, karaoke. I'm making one on like dating and how that applies to public speaking. Like I do a bunch of weird stuff, right? So I think to your point, I think the key message of what you're trying to say, Shirley, that I agree with, is this idea of the more that you learn of how other speakers operate, the more you start to figure out what works for you.
mm,
So for me, talking about research, facts, statistics, percentages is not my thing. I don't like doing that. So I
yeah.
focus more on the overall big global picture of something and I avoid jargon at any cost. But somebody else who has a different idea, let's say they're a PhD in a topic and they need to define their thesis, they can't use my approach because they
Mm.
need to convince other specialists within their industry. So it's,
Mm,
it's all highly dependent on what ideas you want to share and why you want to share them. So I always like to keep it general so people can apply it in any type of presentation.
Right.
Lily, you have a question?
Yeah, I think I do. So we know that we first off have to build the top, build it down. Especially you can do that with friends, and then sometimes somewhere there in the middle. So in the middle, I found out that people can actually zone out or get misplaced or probably not follow. How do you even in there keep some connection so that people are able to stay glued to the conversation or communication? I don't know how you do that from start to end. If there's a way to do it.
Right. So let's talk about the symptom and the core issue. So fixing the symptom would sound something like this. Lily, if you crack a couple of jokes, you're going to be able to keep their attention. That shit doesn't work. Okay? It just doesn't work. Okay? If you try
Well,
and fix the symptom, you try and put these little tricks in your presentation. How is that supposed to help anyone? Let
mm,
me tell you what the core issue is. Every person who asks me that question, I always ask them this question back. How many times have you given that presentation?
mm,
And every single time, it's always a single digit number. 3 times, 1 time, 7 times. And then I asked another question. Well, if you think about any world class professional athlete, Olympians, joggers, basketball players, doesn't matter. Did they throw a basketball 3 times?
mm,
Like, no, it's more like 300 million times, right? Or something like that. Here's the issue with engagement, Lily. The issue is that most people aren't willing to do the same presentation over and over again. Don't take my word for it. Look at all the best speakers in the world. Name all of them. Gary Vaynerchuk, Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, Esther Perel, any of them all share one thing in common is they all talk about one thing.
mm,
One thing. Gary Vee is an example I love to bring up. 14 years he's been speaking now in the circuit. He gets paid 125K, I think now is his rate is. This is his speech, literally. And I'm a huge fan, by the way. Hey guys, yeah, so I grew up in the Soviet Union, came down to the States. You guys got any questions for me? Same thing every time. Every single time. Whether he's in Belarus, Estonia, the States, Canada, doesn't matter. It's always the same speech. And that's why he's exceptional. Another example I can give. It's like Tony Robbins. He's been doing seminars for 40 years now. Let's say we all go to his seminar and he comes up to us and he goes, Shirley, Lily, I've been doing this mindset thing for 35 years and I'm tired of it. You want to talk
mm,
about porcupines this weekend? No. No, Tony. I spent 2 G's to be here. I spent $2,000. I took a flight from Johannesburg to wherever you guys are based, to where his workshop is.
mm,
I don't want you to talk about porcupines. Give me the same thing that everyone else gave them.
mm,
That's the secret. Whereas most people, Lily, they present one presentation one time. They think they can just engage their audience A to Z. Do you know how many times I presented my keynote? 300 times. Not 3 times. I presented this same thing 300 times. That's
mm,
why I'm able to engage. Okay, so let's
mm,
let's bring this back to us now.
mm,
Now that we understand the core issue, how do we fix it? We fix
mm,
it by doing the following. Pick one topic, and for you two, the topic is easy. It's this platform, right?
mm,
You make a presentation about the platform, use it as promotional material. You could do that presentation 1,000 times, right? In theory. present it 10 times, 15 times. And it's always going to happen the same thing. Oh, what content should I put here? Oh, am my slides in the right order? Oh, do I have a. But after 20 times, you know your content. Okay,
Mm.
like you know what the platform is. The platform isn't changing.
Yeah.
But the questions that you ask yourself are going to change. Presentation 1, you're going to say, do I have the right content here? Presentation 20, you're going to say, hmm, I've been presenting this thing for a long time now. What emotions am I conveying? Is my
Mm.
audience actually listening to me? Does Shirley actually care about what I'm saying right now?
Yeah.
And that is how we transition from content to engagement. But the punchline is we don't get to engagement because most people aren't willing to present their content enough times. And I'll give you my case in point to really prove this. I want both of you to tell me what it was like hosting people in your first episode and today. How much has changed,
Can I
Ellie,
go?
right?
tell us.
Go. Lily, weren't you one of my first?
Yes,
You
so I think I was in. Okay, but let me
What
say the
episode is
first
this?
time
Like
I
50?
five.
5. Okay. Okay, no worries. Compare 1 to 5. How like your episode 1 to today, are you better, and if so, relatively how much?
Right. Okay. So let me say from a guest perspective, from the first time I joined Shirley. So when I joined, I was really looking to be all prim and proper. She asked me the question, let me have a response, and let's do this, and not let me not go out of the topic. But I realized that that was like me just giving answers to something that was asked. Now I'm able to do follow ups. I'm able to engage. I'm able to see, is there anything I can even bring from another topic to engage? And that's because I know what we are driving at, and so I'm able to see what looks like it and what doesn't, and to even probe some more. Before, I was so robotic. It's give and take. That was what I came to do on the show. But now I see the trend changing.
Mm. Yeah, that's quite interesting. So when I started, I was freaking out. Pre- Preparation time, 10 hours. Oh my God, like all the technical stuff, you know. Now I'm chilled. I think what matters is the content engagement, being able to go back on follow-up questions, and the flow really matters a lot more. Yeah.
Right. So let's build on that. Imagine where you'll be at episode 50,
And
Mm.
I'm trying to resign.
right? But you know what I mean, right?
I do.
So right, so that's the point I'm driving for everybody. The
Yeah.
reason why, just for the audience now, talking to them directly, the reason why Shirley and Lily are getting better as communicators, it's not because
Mm.
they're special. It's not because I'm special. It's
Practice.
because we're doing the same format every time.
Mm.
Every single time. Go watch my first YouTube videos. I sucked. I was terrible. They're still up. I was
Mm.
garbage. I was literally there in my mother's basement, right there. That was when I started with my phone, literally, right? And that was my content. But then a
Yeah.
year later, I got so good on camera that I went professional, and then I never looked back. But it took those tries, took
Mm.
that amount, that year of practice. So that's the key, people. The only way
Right.
to engage somebody is be willing to present the same thing so many times that you
Wow.
start asking the right questions.
Mm.
But what if
Right.
Can I just say, because I think I've watched a few people and they keep presenting the same thing, and they themselves suffer this crisis of confidence where they feel they're getting boring, right? They're not thinking about the bigger picture. And it's like, yeah, but you're presenting to a different audience and they're looking for that magic. They themselves start thinking, am I good enough? And they start changing it, something that works, and it gets sloppy. I've noticed that with some people.
Right. Be careful with the terminology there. That's not true for world class speakers. That might be like good speakers, great speakers, not the people who are at the top. And I'll tell you why. The reason is simple. You're right. You're always presenting the same topic. You think the questions you're asking me are new? Like, let's be honest. Let's be candid here. Like, Brendan, I know you don't get this a lot, but how do we present in virtual settings? Oh, yeah, it's like the first time I'm getting this question. Like, it's like every interview today. We're the same thing, right? But, but, but why am I still answering it with the same amount of enthusiasm? That's the better question.
Mm.
You both know, you're both smart people.
Mm.
I was on Lily's podcast 3 weeks ago. I said the same thing. I didn't, whatever, right? It's the same stuff, right? But why am I still showing up with the same energy? The reason is because even if the ideas are the same, the audience is always different,
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
right? Let me repeat that again so people understand. The ideas are the same, but
Mhm.
the audience is always different. So to you, especially to me. What is it? What my four? This is what my 200th interview now. So yeah, like I probably think I was like, okay, virtual study. This is what you should do. But from your perspective, it's mind blowing, right? You're
Mm,
just like puzzle. What? I never thought of it like that, right? So I'm always reminded every single time when I look at it from your lens, not mine, that my message, even if it's the same, is actually getting way better over time because I'm doing it hundreds of times. And somebody like Tony is like that on steroids, right? Because he's done it tens of thousands of times, right?
Tony
Does
Robbins.
that make
Wow.
sense?
yeah.
It really does. And I think that this is what I've worked, I don't think they're the best. They're just normal people. And I just say, stay on message. Because literally,
100%.
I just see them going, imploding. I'm like, no, keep, do your magic. It works. You know what I mean?
Yep,
So
Mm,
absolutely.
mm,
I wanted
And
to ask,
oh, one bonus there,
mhm,
because I see it's an issue within your community. One way to fix this, and this is something only 1% of speakers do, like the top in the world. Don't think about your audience as a mistake. Talk to them. Okay. There are so little speakers who don't have dinners with the people that they speak to. It's crazy. I don't understand. So let's say the person that you're talking about right now, whoever that speaker is, that person is making one big mistake, is they're not getting dinner with the person that they're speaking to. They kind of just say in their heads, "Oh, I'm boring, I suck," but they don't take the time to get dinner with Shirley and say, "Hey, Shirley, you just watched me. What do you think?" And you go, "Oh no, Brenden, like you taught me this and this and this." So as I'm listening to you and we're chewing some pasta, what the hell is that? Like I can think and go, "Oh, what? Right. Shirley's right. What I am sharing is important. I don't need to change my talk."
yeah,
That
mm.
speaker you're talking about is not doing that exercise. That's why they fall into that trap.
yeah, yeah,
Does that make
100%.
sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. Yes, it does. Lily, do you have a question?
Yes. So we figured out what to do and no, what to do. So what's one thing that actually would spoil, if I should say, would actually break somebody communicated. Let's look at it from the speaker perspective and from the audience perspective. Because you're interacting with people, what is the one thing that would a speaker would do that would actually he or she will miss the communication point? Number one, what do audience do that make communicators or people communicating also miss the mark?
Okay. So feel free to follow up if I didn't get that. But the way that I see it is from a speaker's perspective, I think the biggest mistake that you can ever make is not presenting the same thing enough times to different audiences. So for
Mm,
example, with me, my most successful client is actually 6 years old. Not many people know this. But yeah, my most successful client is an executive's daughter, right? She's really good because she taught me how to simplify my knowledge so that she would understand. Because if she would understand it, everyone's going to understand it, right? But it's because I'm very versatile in the way that I'm speaking to different demos, like different demographics, like 50-year-old man, 6-year-old girl, that I'm able to adapt my content in a way that speaks to everybody.
mm,
But most speakers make the mistake of doing this. Oh, I got a keynote next week, so I'm going to spend 3 days on this, not get any feedback and present it. Back to what Shirley was saying earlier, they focus too much time on their ideas rather than the application of those ideas onto other people.
mm,
I used to explain puzzle in a much more difficult way. I used to go, well, if you look at my PowerPoint, so I got 7 different structures and all that stuff, and they're all just like, I'm like, just like, they started hyperventilating. I was like, why are you hyperventilating? I can't. And I was like, okay, let's relax. Do you like puzzles? And they're like, yeah. And that works on like 50-year-olds too. But anyways, the point is, the biggest mistake is lack of audience preparation. People don't talk enough to their audience. They don't get to know them. And by that, let me be more specific. They don't just go, like a mistake is saying, let me just talk to them. No, no, no. What does Shirley dream about? What does
mm,
she aspire to be? What is Lily trying to achieve with their podcast? What is she trying to achieve? And
mm,
from what they're trying to achieve, my goal is to be the bridge between where you are now and where you want to be. Most people don't take the time to thoughtfully think through A to B, right? That's why the presentations flop. From the audience perspective, I think the biggest mistake is, oh, because I was like taking responsibility as a speaker. If you suck, it's your fault. Okay, I don't like blaming
mm,
my audiences for that.
Mhm.
So instead, what I say is from the audience perspective, the issue is that the speakers generally don't create space for them. I'll give you an example. Okay.
mhm,
Here's like something like that's a bit more advanced. So let's say I was on a podcast or rather a presentation or something. It's all the same thing at the end of the day with a different type of host. Okay, so let's say I jump on the call and there's a guy named Nick. Let's call him Nick. And he starts his conversation like this: Nick, Brenden, it's so great to see you. We're all super excited to be here. It's all great. So, how do I respond? I go,
Mm,
well, it's great to be here, Nick. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. But you have to keep in mind that the opposite is also true.
mm,
I'm having a conversation with Paula. I get on the line. Paula goes like this: Brenden, it's really great to see you. Then I change my tone and go, oh, Paula, is this your first episode that you're doing with the podcast? She goes, yeah, I'm really nervous, but I spent 10 hours preparing for it, like Shirley was alluded. And I go, hey, don't worry about it, Paula. Let's take it one question at a time. Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here. Notice how same person,
mm,
different energy, completely, right? Most speakers don't take the time to create that space for their audience,
mm,
especially in the Q&A period. They think they're all that. They think they're the best person in the world. They kind of go, yeah, I have all the answers. And then they ask them a question and they don't really spend enough time to pay attention to what they're actually talking about. They kind of glance over that. I think that's the biggest mistake, is that speakers don't honor their audiences enough.
mm.
Does that make
Interesting.
sense? Right. Feel
Yeah,
free to
it
follow up. Yeah.
does. It
It's
does.
cool.
Understand the audience make the speaker, right? So your role there as a speaker is to meet a need that you've identified for the audience. So if you're not meeting it, if you're not making time for them, probably not communicating at all.
Right. And to make this more strategic, since I can tell you guys are very smart with the questions here, is I'm very strategic about who I am and the brand. So for me, my intention is simple whenever I enter the podcast. I want to be the world's most personable speech coach. Right. Another person who does this really well, I can use as an example, is Gary Vee. So let's say when I enter a room, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the conversation, you're like, man, this person's really different than a lot of the other speech coaches in the world. I'm going to follow this person's content because he's very unique. Same thing with Gary. When Gary enters the stage, you almost forget that he has a net worth of $250 million. Most rich people, you don't really like. Kind of like, oh, this guy's pompous. You never say that about Gary. You're like, Gary's one of the people. But he's not one of the people. He's a multi-gajillionaire, right? But the brand, the way that he communicates, it makes you almost believe that he's homeless with the way that he dresses and the way that he is. Even if he's one of the world's most wealthiest people, it's the brand, it's the intention that we bring to the conversation that's more important, right?
Mm,
Can I can I say so? I like Gary Vee, and I think I like him because he's invented his own version of his blue ocean strategy. He just put his stuff out there, and he always says this. He always says it's the market that likes or hates. Don't judge your content. Put it out there. If people hate it, you'll know fast enough. If people love it, you'll know. And he's just gone out there, been himself, and people love him. And I 100% agree with you. He's super approachable, and his content is really on point. At the
mm,
end of the day, people cut through the nonsense. You know what I mean? And I think he's so honest. He's like, he's got the time to filter stuff. So he just says it, and people like that. I like him because he is just who he is, and you know what you're getting with him. So yeah, I think it is important about creating your own blue ocean strategy. So there is no competition. It is your own brand, and that's what keeps him rocking.
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I like that. So how Lily, sorry, did you have something to ask, Lily?
Oh no, it's fine. I'll do a follow up after you.
Brenden, you might give us some tips as co-host. This is the first time I've co-hosted. And
Exactly.
dude, it's cool.
So was that a direct question to me? If you
Yeah.
want. Sure. So here's my feedback, guys. Co-hosting's really challenging, very hard, because you're not in the same room
Mm,
and you
Mm,
have to vibe off each other's energy. So
mm,
the way that I would approach is very different. It's not really public speaking knowledge, it's more about setting it up. So the first thing I would do if I wanted to be a 1% co-host, I would do an insane amount of research on the guest. Like, because
mm,
I've probably been on what bunch of shows, so not for my own ego, right? I'm not famous or anything, but for the co-hosting way. So you do this,
mm,
and as a team, you would figure out what are the most interesting things about Brendan's insights that no one has talked about in a show before. And
mm,
then what you do is you split the insights between you two. Super easy framework. Nobody
mm,
does that in this space.
mm, mm.
well, that's
Done.
great. So what is the
Yeah.
inside stuff that nobody's talked about before?
Hmm. Nobody asks me why I still live with my mother.
Why'd you live with your mother, Brenden?
Right. I think, and this is because I'm very I'm very contrarian the way that I think about life. So whenever people go right, I tend to go left. When people go
Mm,
left, I tend to go right. So for example, I mean an example with me. I mean I started coaching CEOs when I was 23. Right? Isn't that
mm,
insane? If you really think about it. Like to me it doesn't seem crazy, but to most people it's like, "Whoa, you're like coaching 50-year-olds and they're like listening to you?" How does that make
mm,
any sense? Right? So the idea is I've always been very contrarian. So a lot of people what they do, this is kind of like a personal thing, is like, they want their independence. They're like, oh, I gotta get out of my house, I gotta go, and I have the income to do that. It's not like I'm poor or anything. But they forget the other side, which is understanding all the perspectives. How much time do you actually still have with your parents?
mm,
There's a great blog post called "Wait But Why." Great guy, Tim Urban is the author of it. He has a blog. He has a post called he basically explains life, and what he says in the article is from the ages of 0 to 18 you spend every single day with your parents, but then after you leave the house most people spend an average of 10 days seeing their parents in a year.
mm,
But since your parents won't live very long because they're 30 years older than you or 20 years older than you, actually the second you leave your house you've actually spent 93% of the total time that you're supposed to spend with your parents. So I read that article and I said, I don't know when she's going to pass. So I'm just going to
mm,
stay in my 20s because I'm not going to get married for what, 10, 15 years, probably longer. Let's leave that up. And I'm not going to go into the next stage of my life for a very, very long period of time. So I just made the conscious decision to stay. And I want that for everybody, not to stay at your parents' house, but rather to make decisions and every decision intentionally. Not
mm,
because somebody says, "Oh, Brenden, like, well, you're a grown man. You should like go move out of your house." I was like, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like, it was
mm,
super clear in my head that I would never do that. It's just stupid,
mm,
right? I
mm,
would rather just travel. Go. So that's the idea. I'm not saying that's right, by the way, but rather the thought process I want to share with people is in your life. This is more life advice. You need to question everything because by questioning everything, you arrive at the truth that is only unique to you. So, for example, let's say you have a very dysfunctional family. Sure, it doesn't make sense for you to stay at home, right? You know what I mean? Right? That kind of stuff. But what you'll realize is you'll realize things like this. Hey, wait a second. Why are we all trying to get married, have 2.5 kids? Not two, 2.5. It's like 2.5. We're all supposed to have white picket fences because we're not allowed to choose the color of the fence for some reason. And we're
mm.
supposed to have two cars because if you have one car, you kind of look like a loser, right? Who made up all of these rules? Why are we saving up for retirement at 65 if Steve Jobs, who had access to the best doctors in the world, died at 56? Kobe Bryant died at 41. Chadwick Boseman, the guy who did Black Panther, died at 43. We
mm.
start to question everything. We start to make our own decisions. So, yeah.
I would love to have you back on another show to do with that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Mm,
I'm serious. I'm like you. I'm the weirdest person, but I own my weirdness. I actually made a conscious decision to return back to the family home to spend time with my new parents because I don't know how long they're gonna be around.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, I just feel it's not that I have a house in London, but I chose to come back because the
mm,
pandemic, because I just feel sometimes the modern world is pulling the family unit apart and it's
mm,
super dangerous. And I just think there comes a point in your life where you kind of tune into what matters. And it's not
mm.
just about the job and the this and the that. It really is about family relationships and the relationships that matter. So I'm with you. And it's so important. Yeah, yeah. I'm just making my landlord rich. You don't have to do that. Yeah, right?
Literally, literally. Now I pay all the bills. My mom's retired now because we don't have to. I don't have to move.
We
Right?
split and even that meal at family time, the family meals, the time we share. It's so, I just feel why, so I think everyone should really consider why they're doing what they do rather than just following a trend because it's not necessarily the healthiest thing, really. So
Right.
anyway, back to
Let's build on that really quickly because I think this would be super interesting.
Mm,
Let's understand what being normal means because that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying
right,
to be normal. Let's understand that concretely what that means.
making normal.
You're probably going to be divorced. You're going to have
mm,
kids that you don't like. You're going to be obese. You're not going to eat all the right things. You won't have any direction in life. You're not going to do exactly what you want to do. You'll have a house you can't afford, debt that you can't pay off, to buy things that you don't like, to impress people that you don't even want to talk to. You'll
Like,
die at a young age. Do you really want to be normal?
well, that's the
mm,
thing. We
Right?
totally have to talk about because I'm so out of tune with the world, and I love my out of tuneness. And people they call me mysterious. I don't care. Like I feel so serene in my life, like just because of the decisions I consciously make. Because
Mm,
if I were not to be here tomorrow, I've lived my life in a way that I feel 100% comfortable with. I've literally no drama in my life, and I'm so good at setting boundaries.
mm, mm.
The bam. I love it. I love it. Love it. We're 100% on the same page here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I'm okay. I'm an Aquarian. We are known. I'm a middle child. I'm an Aquarian. We're known for being weird, but hey, I'm very happy, and I have all but love around me, and it's great. I'm looking at other people appeasing, assuaging, unhappy, divorcing, all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, what did I do wrong?
I completely agree.
So,
Very
Oh,
well put. Very well put.
Brendan, so how did you get into this game? How does a 25-year-old start coaching CEOs? I mean,
22.
what's your story?
Right, right. How did I get into this game? So I guess the journey for me started when I was 5 years old. So I grew up in a city called Montreal, right? Going back to the little intro I gave before, my parents said, "Hey, look, Montreal's one of the few cities in the world, for those who don't know, where very little people only speak one language. So most people in the city speak two or three. So I speak three personally, but
Mm,
there's a lot of people who speak multiple. So I didn't know French, and French is a required language where I live. So my parents made me go to French school, so I learned it. Obviously, that was a blessing, right? Because now I'm a lot more versatile. But in the process of doing that, I hated my life because I was not only did I suck at presentations, I presented in a language I didn't know my whole life. So when I was in grade one, I would look at the crowd and go, uh, bonjour. And that was my life for most of it. But what happened was when I went to university, I started doing these things called case competitions when I went to business school. So what a case competition is, think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So other guys my age were playing, I don't know, footy or rugby or cricket or some other thing. I never really understood sports, not really my thing. But what I did with the same competitive spirit is I applied it to presentations. That's what I did competitively for 3 years. So I presented for 500 times or something, coached dozens of people on communication, and over time, the unintended consequence of doing, because I mostly did to get a corporate job, right? Like I'm a technology consultant at IBM. That's my day job. That's what I wanted, right? That's like I wanted to be a senior executive. I didn't want to be like a YouTuber. I thought those were rich people. It's not something I do. But what happened after I graduated was I realized, without really trying, or actually trying a lot, but not realizing what the outcome of that was at the age of 22, I was the youngest professional speech coach in the world.
Wow.
Right? Because I just done so many. Because every day, like literally, a good way of describing me, I was like the Michael Jordan nobody gave a shit about, in the sense of like I had the same intensity, like the
Yeah.
same fire. Like I was like terrible to my teammates because I wanted them to win gold, and they all did well at the competitions. But like every night, I was either doing a presentation myself or coaching somebody else, including Christmas. Even on Christmas, I would do like holiday with my family. I'd go to school after and like coach people. It was maniacal. And that's how I learned 40 years of communication knowledge in four, right? That's why you notice a lot of my videos are like, whoa, how does this kid know all this stuff, right?
Mm.
It's because of that experience. And that's when I noticed, when I started making money, that I was just like, well, what do I do now? Like life will be boring if I just become a senior executive and die. And that's when I had the idea for the YouTube channel.
So,
mm.
ask,
Interesting.
go ahead,
I think
Lee.
that's right. I think there's this other thing we wanted to know early on, Shelley. We didn't ask Brendan. I just did it. The space fillers. How do we work
Um,
around them? Space fillers,
um, that kind of
um,
thing.
so
You know
how
what
do we work around those ones especially? Because sometimes I listen, even me, I listen to me and I'm like, why do you have to do all these so many times? And I get missing when people continue doing it in their own speeches. I just kind of zone off. So how do we overcome these?
That's good. So the end of fillers is simple. Okay. Why do we give them in the first place? Why do we say them? The answer is because we're trying to buy time to figure out what we want to say next. So let's say you ask me a question I don't know. I go, well, oh, right. Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to say. But what great speakers do is to buy time. They say nothing. Absolutely nothing. Whereas the people who are average or trying to get better go, let me think about it. Actually, I'm not sure. And that's the difference, Lily. So how do we go from A to B? We replace our ums and ahs with silences. So now the next logical question is, how do we get better at pausing? The trick is to learn to pause for uncomfortable periods of time. I'll tell you a secret that not many of the great speakers talk about, which is this idea that the best speakers in the world can pause forever
Mm.
and never make it look awkward. Obviously, we don't have forever, but just to give you an example, when I give in-person workshops to companies and stuff, I actually pause for 5 minutes and I just gaze into people's eyes, 10 seconds each. I go 1, 2, 3, and I don't say anything, and they kind of just go, and they're all like freaking out. But you can see me; I'm just like, well, whatever.
Yeah.
Why is this important? I know this sounds childish, but let me explain the point to this. The reason why this is important is because you get so comfortable in the nothing that it's much easier to pause for 3, for 5 seconds, for 7 seconds in any of your presentations, right?
Mm.
That's why my exercise for people, especially who are indoors and can't really practice outside, go up to somebody that you love, look at them for 3 minutes straight, and say nothing, and let's see how long you last. Most people
Interesting.
can't do it. Most people can't. They can't do it. There's a funny examples. We're kind of pretty casual now. A lot of my a lot of my clients just before this call. That's why I kind of delayed. I coach executives 2 hours a week, right, from like big companies and stuff. And there's an exercise I give them that they just can't do. And the exercise is look at their wife for 3 minutes without saying a thing. They can't do it. They're like, Brett, I can't do it. I'm like, why can't you do it? They can't. They freak out. They get nervous. After like they can do it for 30 seconds, 3 minutes, forget it. But what this does, and this applies for women too, to when I tell the women executives to do it with their husbands, but or their partner, you know what I mean, whatever. But the idea that I'm driving here is living in that uncomfortableness is so good for public speaking. It makes you really good really fast.
Right. Right. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Or was it? Or was it? I was starting to think it was one of the pauses you were teaching us when you just stopped. But no, I know you you stopped on that. Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually,
Just for a second. See what the audience make of that. Hey, you know what? I actually realized when I'm really close with someone and we're just hanging out, we're good with, we call them comfortable silences because you don't have to fill it. And that is such an important point. I think that if you're uncomfortable, you talk a lot, right? Blah, 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 blah. Like, that's what kicked off Gary's brand of, he talks a lot, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, but here's what people don't know. He listens a lot more than he talks. You just
Yeah.
never. It's just who wants to listen. Who wants to watch a video with him listening 8 hours, 80% of the time? Nobody. That's why he only crops that part. But yeah, no, he listens a lot more than he speaks. Not many people know that.
Is there an element of acting in public speaking?
Let me phrase this differently. Acting in the way you want to act, I think, is the better way of going about it. I'm very performative, as you probably tell, because I want to be, not because I have to be. I'm someone who's very high energy. I've literally been on calls for the past 7 hours now. I just like being high energy. I just like being that. This is my thing. It's just something I like to do. That's not true with a lot of my introvert clients, but those introverts are still just as good as me on communication. And that's not a lie. That's just straight up the truth. But it's just the way that they do it is different. So, for example, they would slow down when they speak. They would be a lot more thoughtful about what they say. So this method of the way that I'm speaking to you now is right. There's no wrong way, and it's pretty effective. But it's just not me, right? This is not the way I do it. So the way I think about it is it always start with what you're comfortable first. Then, as you get better, try different tools you would normally try. So if you're not funny, try being more funny, just for fun, just to see how it works, just to play around. And I'm a good example of this. I pull a lot of my public speaking knowledge from industries that have nothing to do with public speaking. I have videos on theater. I made one on money last week. That's going to come out in like a couple of years because I write my content out very far ahead. I made one on trains. I made one on karaoke. And all of these different insights I then blend into my own public speaking style. That's why you won't see anyone else speak like me.
What did you say about money, Brenden?
Yeah, what did I say about money? I said a couple of things I got to remember. But one of the things that I said is that money, like public speaking, is an amplifier of who you already are. So, in the same way that money isn't good or bad, but rather the person who holds it. So, let's say you're a good person, and let's say you donate, I don't know, 5% of your income to charity. Well, if you became a millionaire, you're probably going to do the same thing. You're going to donate 5 or 10% of your income. So, you'll donate 50, 100 grand. But if you're a bad person,
Mm.
right, and you're an ass or something, well, when you become really successful financially, you'll just be more of that person.
Yeah.
Public speaking is the same thing. It's not about trying to be somebody else, but rather amplifying our own ability
Mm,
as a speaker. So if I'm an introvert, I want to bring more of that personality out. If I'm crazy, which I am in this case, I want to be more crazy. I'm literally talking to you on a mattress, right? I'm literally insane, right? I'm going to have more of that insanity. I'm going to bring more of that energy out. So it's more about over indexing. I don't know a better word here, like creating, bringing more of who you already are. So
Mm.
that's the analogy I made between money and public speaking. Another one I can give you, though this video will come out in like 2023 or something, is this idea of understanding that money is about giving back. So once you have those amazing responsibilities, as you get these amazing communication skills, you now have a duty and responsibility to give that energy back to people. It would have been easy for me to say, I got 10 executive clients. I don't need to do free shows. I can just sleep all day on a Sunday, not have to do anything else. But because of the ideas that I have to share, it's important for me. It's crucial that I share it with them as many people as I can. That is the duty and responsibility of someone who has a lot of money. In the same way, it's the duty and responsibility of someone who's exceptional at communication, which you will be if you keep listening to this conversation, I guess.
right, right. Thank you.
Of course.
I was gonna say, Brenden, when you started out, you were saying that you started with the jigsaw puzzle, and then you start with low hanging fruit, and you build on top of that. So when you work with clients, do you figure out where they are, and then figure out the kind of like the gap where they want to be, and then sort of slowly layer that on?
Yeah, let me add more details to that though. So that's typical coaching. But how this applies to speaking is very different. So the way that I think about speaking coaching is it's like an exponential function. So you start at the beginning, you're like ground zero. You're like, I can't do this. This is stupid. I'm never going to be a great speaker. And then you get that quick win, and then it goes, and then you're
Mm,
off. Right. So
mm,
like the executives I'm coaching, I think we're at week 5. So week 1, it was like horrendous. It was like, I don't want to do this thing. Like, this is not for me. And then week 2, you get one thing, they get like 10% better, like I can conquer the world. And now executives talk like this. I was in a forest and I was like, whoa, okay. I was like, whoa, all right. So so you don't need a speech coach for this, by the way. So
Mm,
how this applies back to you
mm.
is, what is your quick win?
mm,
What is the I see you got a spectator next to you. That's cool. It's like an audience. It's like an in-person audience. But anyways, the point that I'm driving here is that what you need to focus on, and what I do with my clients, is how do you get a quick win in the fastest possible way.
mm,
So for me, that translates to the following: how do I take a presentation that you're excited about giving? Let's change the topic to somebody you care about. And then
mm.
in week 2, I do a couple of adjustments, and then I make you present it again. And then I make you watch both recordings, and you go, whoa, oh, I'm really good at this thing. In the
Mm,
same way I just did today. And I
mm,
compared Gen X with the normal way you would present it. Hey guys, with a way of making it. You're like, whoa, that's true. I can do that. That makes a lot more
yeah,
sense.
Yeah.
Quick wins, and then after I tackle the hardest stuff later.
mm.
Wow. Okay. Lily, you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I was asking, Brendan mentioned early on that for you to be consistent and own or measure your growth, you should have said or done the same thing over and over again. I'm looking at people who have very different presentations every time. So I do a bit of tech, leadership, Brandon, and
Yep.
I'm wondering how to, or properly to myself, because I there are times that I get even to administer personality tests, and I've done this twice. I may not do another thing again. So how do I still do something for the first time, and aim at engaging, like so that it still comes off as being very participatory?
Absolutely. So I'll give you a classic example that I usually give on shows. So Julia is a banker.
Mm,
She works 9 to 5 at a bank. She comes up to us and goes, "Well, Brendan, what's repeatable about my day? I got a bank project this week. I got another bank project next week. It's always going to change. So how do I apply your strategy? I can't present the same thing 100 times." So what I asked Julia is the same thing I want you to think about, Lily, and everyone else who has that issue, which is everybody.
mm,
So Julia, oh sure, I understand your concerns, but just out of curiosity, what do you like to do outside of work? And then she'll look at me and go, "Well, I don't know. This is a stupid question, Brendan, but I guess to answer it, well, I run marathons." I was like, "Tell me about it." She's like, "Oh, well, I won a bronze medal last week. No big deal. And then, I take care of my kids. I don't know, eat recipes or something. But also,
mm,
I coach branding to a kids leadership program." I was like, "Oh, why do you do that?" She's like, "Oh, well, I'm pretty good at marketing at the bank, and I just kind of do it for free, just a volunteer thing." And then I look at Julia, and I would say the same thing to her as I would say to you, which is you already have your repeatable presentation. And then she
mm,
goes, "What do you mean?" And I go, "What do you mean? What do I mean? Make a presentation on branding for the kids leadership program, make that one better." Why? Because even if the presentation will always stay the same, the kids will always change,
mm,
right? Simple. So going back to you, and that applies for everything. Kids, you can make a presentation about parenting tips. I would love to learn more, right? You have two kids, they're both happy. Let's hear your tips. Three, marathons. You won third place at this marathon, Julia. Not you, but the fictional character I'm depicting now.
mhm,
So what's the secret? What's your training regimen? I'd love to learn more. Remember, people, being an expert does not mean having a PhD. Being an expert simply means that I'm one chapter ahead of you.
mm,
I'm sure there's something I can learn from you, Shirley, on how to host better as a podcaster. I've never hosted a show, right? I have my own show, but I don't interview guests. So it's something I
mm,
can learn from you. There's something I can learn about how you manage family and how you become an expatriate between London and where you're living now, right? There's things that I can learn from you. You're not the number one expert in the world, but it doesn't mean there's nothing I can learn from you, right? Same thing. Everyone has that presentation. You just need to dig deep enough. And just as a bonus for you, Lily, because you're here, okay, sure. You talk about branding, technology, and all that stuff. Out of
yeah.
all of those three, what is the one topic that you'd want to present 100 times? Do you really want to give personality assessment tests 150 times?
No,
You're like, oh no.
no, not really.
So
I
what's the
want to
one
do more
tech?
tech, and more policy. So it's more tech policy for me. Talking about it, making notes for people, reading others and criticizing and saying what's right and what's not right and all. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe just to add on that, let's say we're brainstorming together. Maybe you want to talk about women in tech and getting more people in that sector, right? You're like, bang
Yeah.
on, right? I'll talk about that 1,000 times. That's the point. Done. That's your
Yeah.
topic. Figure out the rest. There you go.
Mm,
Right?
mm, mm.
There's always a way to present one topic 100 times. You just need to figure
Yeah.
out the topic.
And I was telling Shelly also that I see every platform as a big one. So when you ask me to speak to kids in second grade, third grade, I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to read through what I have to say. I'm going to dress properly. I'm going to show up all prepared for the for the conversation. Sometimes you get all nervous starting up, but then you start a conversation and then everything calms down. So I want to know, are you ever uh nervous, like you're talking to people and like, okay, fine, okay, let me calm down. How do I prevent my voice from shaking? How do I make this as professional as possible? Because every stage for me is a new one. Second graders, I'm going to wake up and learn. Executives, I'm going to put on my shoes and go wake up and learn. Every one of them, I do all this preparation. But when do I get so comfortable with doing it? Where do I reach and say that, look, I'm not going to get scared anymore? Not scared as it sounds, but how do I get so comfortable doing this? I've rehearsed, but there's still something about showing up. How do you
Right.
get over all that before
Right.
speaking?
So beyond the whole repetition is excellence thing, so we know that. So let's move on. So the next part to that is understanding the following. The best speakers in the world are still scared. You can't remove the fear. There's no like
Mm,
off button to that. I still have it, right? I always will. But there's a very big difference. And that difference is that my fear always loses to my message.
mm,
If my fear and my message were in a boxing fight together, the fear gets knocked out every single time. every single time. So, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say the following: confidence stems from two things. Only
Mm,
two, not 2,000 things, two things. One thing is the obvious one, preparation, right? Second one that not many people talk about is not drinking a glass of water. Okay, it's not breathing, it's not power posing and pretending or fake it till you make it. All that's BS. Okay, I don't buy any of that. The second part is having a belief system.
mm,
Why are you presenting? Why are you giving this presentation? You think I knew how to coach executives the first time I did it
mm,
perfectly? No, I knew how to deliver the result. I knew the framework. Like I knew what I was talking about. But you think I had the confidence to it? No, not at all. So where did it come from? It came from a point of view on what I believed about the world.
Yeah.
mm,
Okay, and this is the point of view. I'll tell it to you right now, just so you understand the core of my mind. Julia's 16 years old. I was like using Julia for some reason. She's in high school. Okay, she wants to get better at communication. She's going to be this amazing woman in tech, superstar leader. Except one problem: she's deathly afraid of public speaking. So what does she do? She can't afford somebody like me. So she types public speaking tips on the only platform that she knows best where to go to, and where she learns everything else. You probably guessed it, YouTube.
yeah.
And what does she find? A bunch of old white dudes in their 70s who know nothing about communication. So what does she do? She takes the laptop, closes it, and goes, I'll never master public speaking. This is clearly not for me. And that belief system that she has, that she'll never be a great speaker, will stay until the rest of her life unless I do something about it.
Mm,
The reason I'm confident, people, has nothing to do with the Sprite that I drink in the morning. It has nothing to do with the orange juice that I drink or my special tonics or whatever. Obviously, I don't drink any of that stuff. But the reason is because I have a point of view on how the world should be. Am I scared of that executive? Absolutely. But I also understand the following: I need that person's money.
mm,
Because if I don't have that person's money, I can't make the quality stuff that I make on YouTube. I just can't afford. Obviously, I'm lucky my best friend does my production, but he's not cheap.
mm,
So I need to figure out how to get this executive results. It's not about like I'm scared. Of course I'm scared, but the belief system that I have in Julia's future is more important than the fear that I have in the moment. So the fear loses every single time. That's how you win.
mm.
So can I comment on that? This whole belief system. Why are we scared of anyone? They're just human beings.
Easier said than done, Shirley, because you're on the other side.
I broke through that a long
You
time
broke
ago.
through that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not. I don't want to sound like I'm boasting, but they're just human beings. I've just got quite a lot of exposure to people. Like I just whatever, you know.
That's
And
hard. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know the moment, the aha moment where I had where I just thought, yeah, whatever, and on some occasions, people have come to me who normally I would go and say hi, but it's been the other way because I just don't care. But Brenden, I was going to talk about that, right? So I think what you're talking about is substance and practice. And I think when you say substance, if you have a view on the world and it's a real, authentic, strong view, you can never go wrong, right? Because it's your view.
Mm.
You can't be wrong about your own view. Whether it's right or wrong, it's yours.
Right. But let me kind of add more layer to that because most people don't even believe in their own view, right? They kind of just go, well, in my opinion, it doesn't matter. So here's two questions, okay, that you can answer for yourself that applies for any type of speaker that will really change the way you look at public speaking.
Mm.
Question one is the following, and it's the first exercise I do with my clients. How would the world change if you were an incredible speaker? Okay. If you were an amazing speaker, you're an amazing communicator, how would the world change? Describe that world in detail. Second question is who suffers from your inability to take action? Every day that you make the decision to not share your idea, who suffers from it? The more specific you are about that person, the easier it becomes. So for most people, this is how it goes. Option A is do the thing, do the show, do the podcast, recipes for cupcakes. I like cupcakes for a reason, even if I don't eat them, but sure. Option B is watch Netflix.
Mm.
My option A is make the videos for Julia or watch her suffer.
Yeah.
The millions of girls and boys like her in the world and the millions of people who will live after I die are the people I punish for not sharing my message. And that is why I write my content 5 years in advance.
Mm.
On the off chance that I die, I want to make sure that the content is still there. That is how clear I am and obsessive. And that is why I've become successful, because I'm so clear on the person that I'm helping that betraying them is just not an option anymore. Even if I wanted to quit, I can't anymore because Julia is a real person. Right?
What's with the 5 years thing?
Sorry?
What is with the 5 years thing?
Oh, that's just because of COVID. A lot of my speaking engagements got canceled, so I don't fly nearly as much. I usually don't do shows, just so you guys know. The only reason I do them now is because I can't take flights to Amsterdam or to the US to do speaking engagements, which is where I make the bulk of my revenue from work and stuff. So yeah, that's why I just said, okay, well, if I can't fly anymore, why don't I just write my content for the next, 10? I'm actually trying to write my content for the next 10 years. I just said 5 for kind of simplicity. Yeah. And the reason is just because I want to put all my thought leadership out there so that in 10 years, whatever happens to me, that knowledge will still be out there. So I'm very mission driven, as you can tell, but I'm also crazy. Like, I'm very obsessed, but that's because I've answered those 2 questions very well. Not because I'm a genius, right? Let's not put labels here. I'm not special. I'm not unique. The difference is I'm more thoughtful about the questions that I'm asking. Most people listen to the question. They go, okay, let me write down the question. They don't think to answer it. Answer the question. Spend a couple of hours thinking about it. That's how you start to build a belief system. That's how you have to build something that actually you want to do with your life. And then you won't be scared of presentations anymore. You'll start to see them as a joke.
Wow.
Right. Right.
Nice. Lily, do you have a question? I was going to throw something in.
Yeah, there's been a lot of questions.
I have a question now.
You know, the best politicians master the art of not answering the question.
Yeah, I don't teach that something really quickly. I don't like politicians. Don't follow them. It's useless. If you want to share an idea, I don't like that kind of stuff. I always answer questions, even if I don't know the answer. I try my best to.
And I'm the same, but they become masters at just alluding, and none of us are, that's a whole other topic. That's why the trust factor is just gone right now. And I think most people now, with the accessibility to media, we just see that these guys just cannot even answer the question. So, but that's another part of speaking as well. They're taught to elude questions, and it's like, wow, this is crazy. But so, Brenden, I mean, just in terms of public speaking and how that affects your personal relationships, what would you say to someone? Like, do you work with people to improve their ability to communicate with others in their personal relationships?
Yeah, for me, how it kind of works, even I don't sell it that way, but it's an unintended consequence. So let's say an executive walks in and they go, yeah, I want to get better at communication at work. That's not actually how they get better. It's by going outside of work. What's happening with your family? What's happening? And then I dig into that after they buy it. But the idea is communication is everything, people.
Yeah.
Like, as you get better with your presentations, what happens, like I've learned over time, as you can probably tell, I'm very eloquent, I guess, for my young age, which is bizarre for most people. But there's an advantage to that. And the advantage is when I communicate with other people, they understand exactly where I'm coming from. They understand exactly what I'm trying to say. And it's always very clear. And that is a lot more useful than you would think. Because then you'd have to repeat the same thing 10 times. You don't get misinterpreted. You know exactly what the other person is thinking and saying. And your life just becomes better. So absolutely. There's definitely correlations to everything.
Yeah, wow. Interesting. So how, have you had people actually, I don't want you to reveal about anyone, but just like communication with the spouse or?
Oh, yeah. I'm always happy to talk. I'm always happy to talk detail. I just don't name names, but I'm happy to talk details, of course. So yeah, absolutely. I was on a podcast recently called the Love Lab podcast, where they even if I don't have that much experience with relationships, I'm being honest, but they brought me on as a communication expert, and what I was explaining that is valid, right? And they even saw value in it because they interviewed me as a couple, and what I said was they asked me what is the biggest mistake that they make in relationships, and I said something very surprising. I said lack of curiosity. And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, based on the relationships in my life, I think what's made them long, like all of the relationships that have lasted more than 5 years in my life, it's I've always been curious. So let's say I'm talking with somebody, it's always like, oh, how's your day? What do you think about this? There's always like like a perspective that they want from the other person. But when there's the curiosity disappears and you don't care anymore, the relationship's pretty much over. If you don't
Yeah.
care about the other person's perspective, and this is romantic, this is personal, this is everything, well, it just doesn't work over time. So I think any great friendship, any great partnership, any great business starts with curiosity first.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Right.
at one of the banks I worked at, they told us to stay curious, even with your colleagues, and they did that as part of risk management. Yeah,
Oh. Whoa.
yeah, they were like, be curious, because that is the way you can spot issues, even mental health, fraud. You know, I mean, I'm just a curious person anyway.
I am also really.
Yeah, I'm a curious person because I like people. So if I'm around someone, I want to, hey, interact or whatever. But I think it's important. And once that severs, you can't fake it. You can't feign it. It's the end of a relation. I mean, you see people at dinner and they're just all of them. They're like this, and they're supposed to be in a relationship, and it's really sad. They've, you know. So Lily, sorry, I've I've been jumping
That's
in.
fine.
You have something?
Oh no. I actually came to pick. I the point I've had today. Actually, I'm not going to use it for just communicating orally, even in writing. Also, I just realized something about how I write and how to have people follow through to the end and leave something and leave with something actionable. So for me, it's been having to relearn. I've been making some notes on the side on my notepad, and especially trying to get people interested and engaged, because I do community engagement for her club. I realized at some point we don't have so much engagement, and it looks as though we do focus deliberations and come to share. So it's giving me ideas on how to have people engage in the communication, do things or say things that they can relate with, um, primarily, and then we can have people engage in the communication. Else, soon enough, we'll just be having discussions backstage and coming to feed them with what we have. So it's been a learning session for me really, and I'm following through to learn some more.
Right, and since we have like a couple more minutes here, how about I give you some more value? So how about we talk about the platform? How many people are currently you following you? Like how many people are a part of this right now?
Right now, I can see
No,
two.
just in general, like for the platform as a whole.
You mean followers or current viewers?
To both. Why don't we just start with both?
Okay, so followers, oh my gosh, round figure. Sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry. There's a point to this, by the way. It doesn't matter what the number is. Trust me.
Oh my gosh. Okay, newsletters, everything. I'd say about 1,500, all
Yeah.
included.
Ken, how many people are watching now?
Two on YouTube. I can't see Facebook.
Right. How much? Like two?
Yeah.
Because
Okay, cool. So now the question for you, Lily, because you're the head of community engagement, okay, is out of those 1,500 people, how many people have you had one-on-one conversations with?
Hmm. Mm, okay, well, I do community engagement for another organization.
That's okay.
I, yes,
How
but
about this one now?
why? Oh no, I've not had one-on-one communication
Yes. She's a
with
host. Brenden
anyone. Yes.
And that
No.
that
No.
applies to you, right? But that's the point I'm making, guys. The
Okay.
number one rule to community engagement, okay, the
Mm,
number one rule to public speaking, besides everything I talked about, is obsessing over your audience. Do you
mm.
know how many 8-year-olds I've talked to about public speaking?
Wow.
So many. Like it's crazy. When I'm at a keynote, literally 30 minutes before my talk, I go there on purpose. I sit next to an 8-year-old. I was like, "How's it going? I'm Brenden." And I'm like, I don't know, eating some fruit or something, just super chill, right? They don't know I'm the speaker. And I'm just listening. And I'm like, "What do you think about public speech?" He goes, like, I'm not really scared." And I'm like, "Listen," I'm like, "Shh." And I was like, "Okay, go simple, simple, some more jokes, be more corny." And it's like all the data is coming in. But if you're not talking to your audience, how do you know what they want?
Yeah, I agree. And actually, it's a bit of a my bad sis scenario because normally we do this every 2 weeks and there's been a bit of a break. So I definitely need to pick up. Brenden, what are you laughing at? Or you
No,
just
I just like laughing. It's just a good time. What, I'm not allowed to laugh? Is
I agree. It's a good time. What's the point of doing this stuff if it's stuffy? But yeah, no,
Mm,
there's definitely some lessons to learn in terms of the break that I've had, and I think you do lose a bit of attention. So I think it's beyond just the what we're talking about, because I think public speaking is that one thing that everyone's like, wow, yeah, I could improve with this. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? I have
mm,
to have to take that out of my vocabulary, because at some point I thought I'd be a barrister, and I remember when I was in court and I kept saying, you know what I mean? He said you need to stop that, and it's so bad because I got so focused on trying to stop that I was just going mad. So I definitely have to try and apply this whole thing about pauses.
mm,
That's one thing I've learned. Can I also make another point? I had to do a speech at my brother's wedding, and I think I did fantastically. I know I did fantastically because I did.
fantastically.
Oh, I did absolutely splendid. So I knew I had to do this speech, and I thought, my goodness, I'm so nervous. And at the time, Lady Di was alive, and I absolutely love the way she speaks. She wasn't the
mm,
smartest person, but she'd obviously been taught elocution, speech delivery, tone, speed. And I thought, I literally psyched up my inner Lady Di and delivered, and it was
mm,
really good. So that was definitely not me. It's not my pace it, but I think that if you have an idea of how you wish to deliver the message, just just do it with purpose. I think if you have
mm,
purpose about who you're talking to and how and what you want to get out of it, I think it does make a big difference. But I
mm.
think my Lady Di speech.
Congratulations to your brother.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's okay. So yeah, I think we definitely, it's a few comments coming in. Hey guys, Elvis, you're late. Hi, Elvis. Thanks for checking in. Have you been around since the beginning? There are a few people watching. They're a bit quiet today, so I mean, just we've got a few minutes left. Brenden, you want to sort of summarize, and if someone wants to get started, they can't afford you. Besides watching your Master Talk YouTube channel, guys, Brenden has a YouTube channel called Master Talk where he discusses much about public speaking. What else can they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a good way of summarizing this is the following. The reason I started the YouTube channel is because I believe that important ideas that are worth sharing need to be shared. There's a huge amount of ideas in the world right now that are left here and not said here,
Mm.
right? They're just stuck. You're like 7 years old, you're 27 years old, you're 57 years old, whatever the age is, doesn't really matter. You're kind of just thinking like, oh, I'm not sure. But here's my point of view. My point of view is a great idea follows the following definition if it helps one person, which means, spoiler alert, everyone has a great idea. Could be something that influences your mother, it could be something that influences your family. So, my opinion is don't have the courage to share it because there's somebody out there who needs to hear that idea. And why shouldn't that person be you? I asked myself so many questions. I thought MasterTalk was a stupid idea when I started it, frankly. I was making videos in my mother's basement on my phone. How was this going to amount to anything? But what I realized is I was the person to do it because nobody else was doing it. So I just made the decision to be the messenger of that message. So the
Mm.
question you need to ask yourself is, what is that idea for you? And why are you waiting to share it?
That's yeah, that's a that's a good reason to do that. Actually, because we quit about this earlier. Why do I do this platform? Is it fame? I actually hate, like, I love meeting people and I always enjoy these sessions, but I hate the whole video. I'm a super private person, but I figured that if I don't do what I'm doing, what's the point, right? It's we're trying to help young people think out of the box, think differently, take action, all the things that I'm saying, and I needed to start. So I 100% agree with that. It comes from passion, and it's a passion to open minds, change lives, engage with people. So yes, I definitely do need to work on the engagement. So yeah, Lily, do you have any closing comments, questions?
Closing remarks. Probably what I learned about consistency and repetition, and on learning the fact that things get better when you consistently do it. So you in the first start, you get people to listen. As you go, it's when you have engagement and you feel more comfortable doing it. So you put in the work and the results follow. So it's not magic. It's work that has been put into it. And like you said, the basketball players didn't just throw b-ball 3 times. No, they did over and over and over and over again. So that's the work you're putting in, and that's what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to be applying that as well. Brenden, I would love it if you once hosted some.
What did you say?
I would love it if you host something once as well. Invite us.
No, I don't have time. I don't have time for that.
Come on, invite us to talk about family.
I'm
Yeah.
so busy, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, come on. I'll hold up my hopes for that. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for not sleeping all Sunday. Enjoy to talk about public speaking and communication. It's something I'm sure we've all learnt from, and I'm going to be posting this to the newsletter. So yes, they will get to see this at some. Remember, Sunday is also quite, people are spending time with their families as well. So thank you all for watching. Elvis, it's okay. I forgive you next time. So guys, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. If you guys could just, Brenden, Lily, if you could just hang on. Thank you guys for
Mhm.
watching. Join us on the next round table, which we'll be announcing pretty soon. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you, Shirley.